You're tuned in to Get Right Fantasy.
Hey everybody, Adam Rank here.
What's up, friends? Daniel Dopp here from the Fantasy Focused Football Podcast over on ESPN.
It's Fabs here, Michael Fabiano from Sports Illustrated.
You know who you can trust if you've got some questions about your fantasy squad?
Want to check out a cool show on YouTube that'll help you get ready for the fantasy football season?
Check out the Get Right Fantasy Network.
Check out the Get Right Fantasy Network. If you are not subscribed, what are you waiting for? You want to lose your league?
Head on over to YouTube. Check out the Get Right Fantasy Network because they're doing everything they can to make you a better fantasy player.
You got to get right with the Get Right Fantasy Network.
You're tuned in to Get Right Fantasy.
Welcome into Friday Night Mocks. I am your host, Phil Ruskin. Kendall is having some computer issues tonight, but we are going to get started. I actually don't know if you guys can even hear me because I'm having some issues hearing myself tonight. So hopefully we're rocking and rolling, and we are going to get started with a 12-team SuperFlex Dynasty startup draft tonight. And I'm going to try to break it all down for you. I would love to have my buddy here, but we will we'll get on it and we'll figure out how it goes. If you're not tuned into the mock, you should be. If you're on the side screen watching the Florida Gators, go Gators in the NCAA tournament. But we've got a 12-team snake draft tonight, 20 rounds. We will be doing, as I mentioned, a SuperFlex Dynasty startup. It's March. We've got a lot of time before we get the rookies in here, and ultimately we have a lot that is going to change. So use this as just kind of a good barometer for where the market is, and ultimately expect that some of this is going to change drastically as we get closer to draft season, both with the rookies and with the actual NFL draft in late August. And Pastor Sauce on the clock here at the 101. I would expect Josh Allen or Drake May to go. Josh Allen does. Victorious taking Bijan Robinson at the 102. Interesting in the Superflex draft. Gibbs going at the 103. Back-to-back running backs. Kendall is on the clock but having some computer issues. So I would expect he's got it. He's good to go. Drake May off the board at the 104. And as we get into the second half of the round here, as these quarterbacks start to come off the board, we will certainly see some names. Jamar Chase at the 105. I promise I'm not going to read every pick, but of course we will break this all down at the end. Puka Nacua at the 106, at the 107 here. Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels on the board at quarterback, JSN, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra. So we have a ton of talent still available with Joe Burrow going off the board at the 107. Graham at the 108 here. Jaden Daniels, JSN, two highest ranked players here on the board. Jaden Daniels goes. I'm on the clock at the 109. I'm going to use about all 20 of my 30 seconds here. I would have taken Jaden Daniels there in a super flex, but with only 6 picks in between me and my next pick, I am going to take JSN here and try to build my team around a very young and talented wide receiver. Only 4 quarterbacks off the board, 9 picks into the draft. Again, super flex, so certainly try to get yourself young talent here in the early rounds. There is no draft pick trading tonight. So, of course, if you're in a snake draft, know that there are going to be tons of moves, tons of trades. But tonight we're just doing a straight snake draft. Pretty close to what I would expect this to be here for the market with JSN, Amon-Ra, and Malik Neighbors going off the board at 9, 10, 11. Jar Jar 51 here at the 12 takes Brock Bowers at the 201 here as he's got back-to-back picks. Going to go ahead and solidify his tight end room with Brock Bowers and then adds CD Lamb. Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts still on the board. Mahomes, Caleb Williams, Herbert, Dart, lots and lots of talent at the quarterback position. Justin Jefferson is still available here as we get into the top of the second round. So let's see how this second round shakes out, because now we are starting to get to a point where guys who didn't go quarterback in the first round might go with a 0 quarterback, or they may try to get at least 1 quarterback to solidify their rooms. At the 202, Ashton Genty goes, and then Jeremiah Love. Interesting. Jeremiah Love is the RB4. Don't have a huge issue with that. I'm back on the clock here with Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Justin Jefferson on the board. I'm going to do something a little bit out of the norm. I'm going to take Jackson Dart here. It's a mock. I don't know if I'd really do this if this was a real draft, but with the youth and the upside of the Giants, I think that's interesting. That leaves Lamar Jackson for Graham to take at the 205, probably who I would have taken if this was a real draft. But it's why you mock. I want to see how this draft turns out. With guys do interesting things. People trade. There's all kinds of stuff you think will happen in a draft that ultimately doesn't fall and break your way. So introduce a little chaos, and let's see what my team looks like here at the end. Justin Jefferson, Devon Achane, Trey McBride off the board at the middle of the second round. And as we get back towards the top of the board here, I expect there to be a pretty decent quarterback run coming up, because we are at a tier break here with Hurts, Mahomes, Caleb, Justin, Herbert, and then their tier break should start to go. Kendall takes Omarion Hampton to pair with Drake May. Lord of Fanta started at the 103 with Jahmyr Gibbs and then takes Caleb Williams. I like that start. Victorious, interesting decision. I like this decision here. Bijan Robinson and Drake London, knowing there's only 2 picks between him and when he's on the clock again. And the 101 was Josh Allen. So he is going to get a good quarterback here. So I like the build with Bijan, Drake London, and then the quarterback that's left for his choice. George Pickens going off the board here at the end of the second round at the 212, and at the 301 could be a second quarterback here, could be another wide receiver, as we look and check the top running backs. JT is on the board, James Cook on the board, and we will certainly see how some of these rookies start to introduce themselves, both at the wide receiver and at the running back position. So if you're drafting and you are watching the live stream, jump in the comments. Let us know how you think you're doing. Certainly would love to get your take early on here of which teams you think are strong, who has a good build. James Cook starts the third round at the 301 with Jalen Hurts at 302, followed by Mahomes. That is the tier break for me. Justin Herbert, I think, is probably the last of that tier. So interested to see what Kendall does here. Does he go wide receiver? Does he take Justin Herbert to pair with Omarion Hampton, having started with Drake May? He does take Justin Herbert. As we get into the middle of the third round here, starting to take a look, of course, at running back. There goes JT as we get into kind of the second tier of wide receivers. But I like some of these builds so far. Very balanced build. A couple teams going quarterback heavy at the top. But again, just because it's a super flex, it doesn't mean you have to take 2 quarterbacks. I know that's generally the norm. But ultimately, I think when you start to look at how you want your team to be built, you can play, obviously skill position players in the super flex position. So JT at the 305, at the 306, Tet McMillan, 307, Nico Collins, and that puts Graham back on the clock here at the 308. I think we have a lot of skill position guys expected to go off the board here pretty quickly. Emeka Egbuka, nice pick, Graham. That is probably where I was going to go, since that is not the pick available to me right now. I'm going to gamble a little bit here. There's some players that I like that I think and hope will get back to me. So I'm going to take Ladd McConkey. I think that the Chargers are going to be a hot pick this year. He's young. Mike McDaniel's coming in. He had a great rookie season. Then, of course, not great second sophomore season, but the upside is there for Ladd. And in the third round, I'm comfortable with that to pair with JSN and to go with Jackson Dart, my mobile young Russian quarterback. So we'll see who gets back to me as we get around the turn here. But big wide receiver run right now with McMillan, Collins, Egbuka, and McConkey all going off the board. Victorious in the comments saying I probably wouldn't start with double Atlanta in a real draft. Understood. I don't know that I'm always a fan of that as well. Of course, it does cap your ceiling a little bit. But I think ultimately in this kind of a draft, you will see someone who starts maybe with Bijan, grab a quarterback there. Or if somebody starts with a quarterback, Drake London is a great pick there, especially great value at the back of the second round. Brock Purdy going after Ladd McConkey, Chris Olave at the end, at the 311. And then Carnell Tate, wide receiver 1 out of this rookie class, with Mekhi Lemon and Jordan Tyson still available on the board, as Jar Jar 51 closes out the 3rd round and then grabs his first running back here with Christian McCaffrey. I'm going to take a peek at the running backs here and just see who's available as I get into prepare for my next pick. Also take a peek at the wide receivers. I think quarterback is closing quickly, so I'm probably going to let that slide. There's a lot of teams behind me that have 2 quarterbacks, some that don't have any, so I probably end up getting stuck with someone I don't love. Blow Nix going off the board at the 2nd pick of the 4th round here, so we'll see what sort of decision. But these are the kind of decisions you're going to have to make. Trevor Lawrence going off the board there. So just taking a quick peek at the quarterback position: Dak Prescott, Mendoza, Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield. I'm not in love with any of those guys. At the wide receiver position here, we've got Mekhi Lemon. If you'd like to go the rookie route, Garrett Wilson is talented, but the situation is tough. T. Higgins, Jamison Williams. At the running back position, it's not great. So I am going to take T. Higgins here. Actually, I'm going to take Mekhi Lemon here. I will gamble with the rookie and see if he can land in a good spot, being projected right now as a top 15 pick. It is a full PPR draft for those that know me, that have ever played in the league with me or have listened to any of my shows. And then, of course, the mock drafts. I like to start my team pretty wide receiver heavy. So that's how I'm going to build and kind of pick up some of the scraps. I'm not going to read all the names off. I'll come back and do some team breakdown at the end. But one of the things that I've been thinking about, and I want to talk with you guys about it, if you're in the comments, please comment on what I'm about to say. I'd love to have a discussion since Kendall's not here. I'll kind of interact with the crowd a little bit. One of the things that I've been thinking a lot about, and I didn't do it tonight because I only took Jackson Dart, but I am starting to think if you're in a SuperFlex league, it's an interesting theory to just go quarterback heavy and then maybe grab some really solid tight ends if you're not trying to win in year 1. And the reason I say that is it's really difficult to get a top quarterback if you're not in the 101 to 103, maybe even the 104, depending on the year. This year, in all transparency, a lot can change. We know that it's early, but I just don't feel like you're going to take a quarterback until the 2nd round if you're not getting Mendoza. And so I think there's ways that you can trade. I think there's ways that you can add depth to your team, no matter where your firsts fall. And if your team isn't solid, you're keeping your own first. I'm always a big fan of keeping my own picks if I can, because that's obviously going to let me determine my own fate. But I also believe very strongly that if you can find ways to trade picks into future years, into future assets, while keeping your quarterback room strong, that is probably the fastest way to build your team if you don't get all of the skill position guys that you want early, because there's just more depth at the running back and the wide receiver position in drafts than it is at the quarterback and certainly at the tight end position. So I'm playing with some different models right now and doing a ton of mock drafts, of course, like we're doing tonight, kind of looking at, hey, what would my team look like if I went super quarterback heavy and if I grabbed one of the Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, Loveland, Tyler Warrens, and then just seeing if I'm pleased with that kind of a draft. So let me know your thoughts, comments. I'd love to have a quick chat about it. I took Mekhi Lemon, and that's where we left off. Garrett Wilson goes right after, followed by Bucky Irving. KW3, that's interesting. I think, to me, I would have taken Walker. I wouldn't probably have taken him ahead of McCaffrey, but I could understand somebody that wants to. But Walker going behind Bucky, followed by T. Higgins, Breece Hall, Colston Loveland is the tight end 3 off the board, Chase Brown and Kinshawn Judkins to close out the round. And then a huge wide receiver run: Devonta Smith, Rashee Rice, Jamison Williams, Rome Odunze, BTJ, 5 straight receivers to start the 2nd round, making me feel a lot better about taking Mekhi Lemon to pair with Ladd McConkey and JSN, because that means that a quarterback and or a running back should fall to me here in the next 3 picks. And that's actually something I feel very comfortable with. So A.J. Brown goes to continue the running back, the wide receiver run. And now we're back here to the middle of the round. Marvin Harrison Jr. coming off of the board. So lots and lots of talent leaving on the running. Wow, an entire round of receiver. Here's Luther Burden at the 5'8". That's a great pick. Really like that pick for Graham Stroker. I'm going to take a look here. Jordan Tyson is on the board. Travion Henderson is on the board. That's an interesting play there. I don't have a second quarterback. It's Dak Prescott, Mendoza, Jordan Love. I'm not super in love with any of those guys. I'm going to roll the dice again here, and I'm going to take Jordan Tyson and hope that I have 2 wide receivers in the first 3 picks of this, what we project in this upcoming rookie SuperFlex format. Jeremiah Love. Almost said Jordan Love. Jeremiah Love should be the number 1 pick in all formats. Even in SuperFlex, Jeremiah Love should be the number 1 pick overall. And then I think it's going to be, of course, Mendoza at the 102, but it wouldn't surprise me if one of the wide receivers pops ahead of him. But I believe the first 5 picks in a SuperFlex draft this draft season will very much be Mendoza, Love, and then the top 3 wide receivers. So after Jordan Tyson goes, Zay Flowers, Travion Henderson, and Dak Prescott close out the round to end the 5th. Fernando Mendoza kicks us off here in the 6th round as we get into the second I guess a 20-round draft, so we're not doing 12. My brain was in a 12-man draft there. Tyler Warren, nice pick. That was somebody that I was looking at here as we get into this next round. In the 6th round at the 602 coming off the board, followed by Josh Jacobs. Man, sniped right in front of me. Sometimes that's the way it goes. I'm interested in Saquon here. My team's pretty young. I feel like I have some good youth. I also have some upside. So even though it's not sexy because he's an older player, I play, and we all should be playing Dynasty in a 2 to 3 year window. I'm interested in Saquon. I'm also interested in Scatterboo. I am going to take Scatterboo here ahead of Saquon. Hope he survives the draft. It'll give me a mini correlation stack with Jackson Dart. It's a young player, and if he survives the draft and they do end up, the Giants at 5, if they do end up going with a wide receiver, then Scatterboo's his value in Dynasty should actually rise. I think that he is a player who very much it gives you some nervy moments. If you have him right now, I would say you're not comfortable, but you're not super uncomfortable. I think you're probably right in the middle in terms of what the Giants are going to do. Ultimately, I believe the Giants are not going to take Jeremiah Love. I think Jeremiah Love is going to go to the Titans at 4. But if he doesn't, I do think that the Giants will pass. Javonte Williams going off the board as we have a big running back run to enter the 6th round with Josh Jacobs, Cam Scatterboo, Javonte Williams, Kyron Williams, Saquon Barkley, and the newest New Orleans Saint, Travis Etienne coming off the board here at the 608. I just watched his presser this week. Actually, it was interesting. I think he's going to do well there. Jordan Love for Kendall getting his 3rd quarterback, taking maybe a page out of my book here. I like what Kendall's doing with the build. Drake May, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, giving him 3 really young, really solid upside quarterbacks. Drake May, of course, the ability to be probably not the overall QB1, but certainly finish in the top 5 at the position. Justin Herbert, again, the Chargers are going to be hot this season. Amari and Hampton paired with Breece Hall, only Rome Odunze, but Jordan Love. So I like what Kendall's doing. It's a good build. It's certainly a build that gives him the ability to get younger and draft some positions that are skill positions versus having to go quarterback and hope that his team is high enough to get one of the top talent quarterbacks. The newest Denver Bronco, Jalen Waddle going off the board, and then the rookie wide receiver for KC Concepcion as Ricky Pearsall closes out the 6th round. Bashal Tootin at the 701 to start the 7th with Baker Mayfield following behind him. And this is where I expect there to be a lot of variance. The clock is starting to run down. Guys are starting to look for more players here. So I think this is the real kind of tipping point in your draft where the top talent is gone. The 2nd-tier talent is thinning. So now, in all honesty, you're just looking for players with upside. I think at the end of the day, you're trying to find guys who can finish at the top of their position. Maybe they're a onesie position as Harold Fannin goes off the board here, right? Baker Mayfield, Michael Wilson, Harold Fannin, followed by CJ Stroud and Jared Goff. So guys coming off the board here that are giving you some upside at the skill positions, at the onesie positions. In the middle of the draft here at the 7-5, 7-6, we had two managers who did not have a quarterback. So CJ Stroud and Jared Goff as their QB1, but really, really solid skill position players. Tucker Kraft at the 7-07. That is a direction that I was looking here with this next pick. That will obviously not be my pick now. I am back on the clock, and the running back market is either old guys or guys that are very young and unproven. I feel really good with 4 wide receivers, so I am going to take a quarterback here. I'm going to give Sam Darnold a shot. He's got a couple years on the contract as my QB2. Still not great, but there's some upside there, and I'm going to take him to pair with JSN. My team isn't intended to be a best ball team, but it's sort of turning out like that. Christian Watson at the 7-10 here as we start to look to finish out the 7th round. At the tight end position, Sam Laporta, Kyle Pitts, Eli Stowers are on the board. At the wide receiver position, starting to get to some of the older players, Cortland Sutton, DK Metcalf. Not sure what their value is going to be as Jordan Addison goes off the board. But again, you do have some guys that could give you some flex ability, pun intended there. And then at the running back position, it's really kind of call your shot with some of these young guys. You've got a Zach Charbonnet still available. It's a dynasty format. I wouldn't worry about the injury. Blake Corum is available, Woody Marks, DeAndre Swift, Derrick Henry. So you've got some players here that are still available here in the 2nd round, as Tyler Algier, the starting running back, or at least the head of the committee, is going to go off the board at the 8:01. To close the 7th, it was Christian Watson, Jordan Addison, and then DJ Moore, Josh Allen's, we presume, wide receiver 1. So I like that. I think that's a good solid pick in the 7th round, good value. Cam Ward off the board here at the 8:02. As we get into the 8th round, again, as I've said a couple times now, the clock's starting to tick down. Guys are really starting to look for players, look for value. Sam Laporta off the board. I am going to go at the running back position here to pair with Cam Skattebo. It's a guy that I think's got probably 2 or 3 years left of solid value. I'm going to take David Montgomery here, starting running back for the Houston Texans. I'll be honest, I was looking at a quarterback there as well. I don't expect the quarterback to get back to me. So I'm just going to play it out. And when he is drafted, I do expect him to go before. There he goes right there. Tyler Shuck off the board. That's who I was between there, was David Montgomery or Tyler Shuck. Chose to go with Montgomery here. Needed a 2nd running back. Not sure what my team's going to look like in year 1, if I'm really competing, if I have some expensive assets that I could maybe sell to try to get younger or to try to get some upside in the draft next year. Kyle Pitts at the 8:07, followed by Matt Stafford. Stafford's interesting. I think Duarte probably needs a 2nd quarterback here because he only had CJ Stroud. So maybe that's a necessity pick. But ultimately, I think Stafford's going to have a great, I am calling it, final season. I think this is it for him. I think this is the end for Devontae Adams as well. I anticipate if the Rams win the Super Bowl, guaranteed they both retire. If for some reason they don't, I could see maybe one more year, but I think this is probably the end for Stafford and Adams. They've had one hell of a career. RJ Harvey, Alec Pierce, newly paid Alec Pierce, Kyler Murray, the quarterback 1 for the Minnesota Vikings, followed by Bryce Young as we end the 8th. Miami's Malik Willis at the 9:01, and then Jonah Coleman, rookie running back 2, RB2 in this draft, probably the RB2 in the real draft, but we will see. We'll see how that looks. Xavier Worthy going off the board, and then Aronde Gadsden Jr. So double tight ends there for Kendall. Interesting. I wonder, Kendall, if you're listening to the show. Derrick Henry at the 9:05. And we are starting to see positional variance here in a big, big way, as I thought we might. Still lots of good players available as Daniel Jones goes off the board there to Robbie at the 9:06 to pair with Jared Goff as his QB2. I'm trying to pull my computer screen up so I can see some of these builds. Yeah, there's some. I'll break everybody's teams down at the end, so stay tuned. But there's a lot of good players. Zach Charbonnet going off the board there. That was someone I was considering. So I am going to pivot here, and I'm going to take call my shot. Omar Cooper is getting a lot of late first round buzz. We'll see if that actually happens as far as his draft capital. So I'm going to take Omar Cooper here. The running backs are just not as valuable in my opinion. And Omar Cooper is a player who either we'll see, of course, the landing spot, it's still early, but if he has first round draft capital, he has a great skill set, physical receiver. I think he had a great, redshirt junior season, but, a player that could develop and I could possibly sell because I am going to need running backs in my build here. As I've only taken Cam Scatterbo and David Montgomery. So we'll see what this team ends up looking like. Denzel Boston goes off the board next. So back-to-back rookies as we get close to finishing out this 9th round. Still lots of value, still good players on the board here at all of the positions. And we'll see how this continues to fall. For those that aren't able to see the board, the quarterback position pretty thin. I think there's a lot of guys. Jaden Higgins going off the board at the 9-11. I like that pick. If you've ever heard any of my shows, if you've listened, I am a big Jaden Higgins supporter. I've always thought he was a good talent. I thought he showed enough in his rookie season to believe that there is a possible step forward for him here in year 2. Jaylen Warren at the 9-12. I think Jaylen Warren is going to be a player we are going to spend a lot of time talking about this offseason, knowing that there's no quarterback in Pittsburgh right now, and I think we've got some interesting questions as to what that running back room is going to ultimately look like with Rico Dowdle coming in to Pittsburgh. Is Rico Dowdle going to win that job outright? Is it going to be a split? I think there's still a lot of questions that we need to answer as to what that's actually going to look like. DeAndre Swift off the board, followed by Jadarian Price. My team right now is young. I think I've got good youth, and ultimately I'm not sure what this is going to look like. So I'm just not super in love with this running back class. I'm not really in love with this running back position. And so I'm going to take a look at wide receiver here and see if there's some value. I'm actually also going to take a look at quarterback, but ultimately right now, I think I am going to go ahead and take Rico Dowdle just for the season to see what that running back room looks like. Of course, it's March. It does give me an option to potentially have an in-season trade if Warren were to miss time, if Dowdle were to miss time. I do think it's going to be a backfield split. It's not my favorite pick, but I think for right now, what I'm looking at is if I'm going to compete this season, he gives me a chance to compete this season. And then maybe midway through the year, I can make a decision whether my team is in the playoffs or out of it and start to maybe sell some assets. Chuba Hubbard goes off the board next with Carolina shipping some guys out. It's an interesting pick. It's not a bad pick at all. I like the thought process there behind Graham's selection of Hubbard, Kyle Monangai, and then DK Metcalf as we get into the middle of the 10th. What I am seeing early on is guys, obviously, of course, opting for youth, opting for upside, Blake Corum, Matthew Golden. So, the Derrick Henrys of the world at the 9th round. Devontae Adams is still on the board. These are players that probably only have 1 year left. If you're a win now team, I think it's certainly okay to take them. Duarte, he has Blake Corum here to pair with Matt Stafford. So interesting if he decides to go with Devontae Adams as he comes back around at the turn. And right on cue, Devontae Adams off the board, followed by Dalton Kincaid. With the last pick of the 10th round, Pastor Sauce on the clock. He's giving it a good hard think, trying to figure out what he's looking for. It is Josh Downs, followed by Brenton Strange as we start the 11th round here. Travis Hunter off the board. Interesting season last year. Lots of question marks about his value heading into year 2. James Mason from Minnesota, who I think is probably the RB1 there. I know Aaron Jones was re-signed. We'll see how that goes. Jaden Reed, Jake Ferguson heading off the board as well. As Robbie makes his selection here in the middle of the 11th, Terry McLaurin is his selection. Still a couple teams with only 2 quarterbacks, so there might be a couple of late addition guys that get tossed onto rosters here as we get around the turn in the 11th round. I'm taking a peek at the running back position. Again, still nobody that I'm super enamored with. Michael Pittman headed off the board here. At the wide receiver position, some young names, some dart throws, lots of second-round picks. Mike Evans, of course, an aging player. Diggs, Godwin, so older guys. I am going to take a flyer here on Eli Stowers as my tight end 1, as the youth and upside of the tight end 2 in this class. I don't have a tight end yet, so I'm going to take a flyer there and see what he looks like. Hopefully he has a good path to playing time and certainly some upside in terms of athleticism. Elijah Surratt going off the board at the 11-10, followed by Ty Simpson, the presumptive QB2 in this class, and then Tua Tagovailoa. So interesting, Tua going ahead of Michael Penix there. I think that's also going to be a big debate this season as to who has the ability to actually win that job, who has the ability to actually be the starter there. I don't know how they're going to sort that out. I think it's, if you could put both of them together, you might have a healthy quarterback, but that's just not how the real world works. So not something that I want any piece of, I'll be honest, but I understand if you've got Tua or Penix on one of your dynasty rosters, you might not have a choice. And that's the reality of the situation there. So we'll continue to monitor that as we get closer to camp, because it impacts Drake London and it impacts Kyle Pitts in a big way. Brandon Ayuk going off the board. I laugh not because it's a bad pick, just because I don't think anyone has a clue what's going on with that guy. And so the reality is that he's just kind of there right now. Emmett Johnson going right here. I'm going to take Woody Marks. I know I have David Montgomery on this team, but, you know, Monty's a great player. Of course, Woody Marks had a solid season in his Houston debut, but I feel like as much as I don't love having 2 guys on the same team, it's a dynasty format, and it does give me the option to control the Houston backfield. If anybody were to miss time, at least I know I have a plug and play RB2, or certainly a flex option if I could, if I end up trading for another running back here as well. Jonathan Brooks right after Woody Marks. I like that pick. Graham maybe doing and thinking a little bit similar to what I had just commented on. If Chuba Hubbard's not the guy, knowing that Rico Dowdle is gone, Jonathan Brooks could be. And so I like controlling Carolina's backfield. So I like that pick for Graham Stroker there. And then New England's wide receiver 1 for now is Romeo Doubs, and Romeo Doubs goes off the board here in the middle of the 12th. Solid pick there. I'm going to pause here for just a second. I expect Romeo Doubs to be at a minimum the wide receiver 2. I know there was a rumor that was posted today, and it's kind of floating around the Twitter sphere, that the Patriots and the Eagles have a post-June 1 agreement to trade A.J. Brown. I don't know if that's true. I'm sure nobody knows if that's true. Gainwell going off the board here. That's a great pick. But I wouldn't rule out an A.J. Brown trade to New England. I think if the Eagles do move him, it is possible that New England is a landing spot for him. So I'm going to say right now that Romeo Doubs' stock is pretty high, but I do expect it to come down, especially if they take a receiver in the draft who's a big-time receiver, or if they were to trade for someone. If they trade for A.J. Brown, it brings Dobbs' stock down. They are drafting 31st in the draft, so I don't know that a rookie is really going to displace Dobbs, but it certainly would be worth seeing what happens. Khalil Shakir, Michael Penix, Jalen McMillan, Kenny Gainwell, George Kittle, and Tyrone Tracy to close the 12th. Jalen Coker, Juwan Jennings, Trey Benson, Jacoby Brissett, Tony Pollard, and Ramondre Stevenson to open the 13th round. And we take a look here at some of the players that are still available. Bill Krosky-Merritt goes, followed by Mark Andrews. I'm going to take a quick peek at the quarterback position. There's just nobody there that I love. I only have 2 quarterbacks. I will need to get a third at some point. The running back position is okay. The wide receiver position getting a little bit thin. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the tight end position here. Nobody that I love. So I'm going to go ahead and take a flyer on a running back here. I am going to take Nicholas Singleton from Penn State. We'll see. And it's probably not a pick that I would make in real life. Isaiah Likely going right afterwards. Likely probably would have been my pick there, but with Scattaboo and with Dart, I just don't know that I want to be that heavy on the Giants, even though I like the offense. I also have 3 wide receivers that are rookies, and it is not guaranteed that any of them don't wind up in New York. So that was my reason to not select Likely there. But I like that pick a lot for Grumsh, who's drafting right after me. I think that's a solid pick at that position of the draft. JJ McCarthy off the board, probably sitting a year. We'll see what his fantasy value looks like as we continue to move forward. I'm going to take Tank Bigsby here. I need another running back. I'm not sure that Nick Singleton or Katron Allen from Penn State is really the guy, but Saquon's getting older. That offense, I would expect them to bring somebody in if Saquon were to miss any time, but Tank is a good player. He's had some flashes in Jacksonville and obviously now in Philadelphia as the backup. So Chimere DK and then Isaiah Pacheco. I was looking at Pacheco there. But with Gibbs's age, being so much younger than Saquon and the way that they use him, that we don't talk about injuries on this show. We don't speak things into existence. But if Pacheco had to be the Detroit running back, or if Bigsby had to be the Philadelphia running back, I think Bigsby would have the higher ceiling, in my opinion. So we'll see how it plays out. Chigakonkwo, Washington Commanders tight end now, followed by Deebo Samuel, Trey Harris, Shedeur Sanders, and Mike Washington Jr., with Rashad White finishing up the round. AJ Barner, Katron Allen off the board here. TJ Hawkinson going off the board here at the 15-3. Kendall taking Jeremy Bernard from Alabama. Rookie wide receiver. There you go. That's how my brain's working right now. Rookie wide receiver. Let's try that again. Rashid Shaheed, Cortland Sutton. As we get into the middle of the 15th round. Dalton Schultz coming off the board as Jaywin gets a backup for Tucker Kraft. And Jalen Milroe. I'm going to take a flyer on David Njoku here and hope that he gets a job somewhere. I know there's some other younger tight ends here. There's certainly some rookie tight ends that have some upside, but I know what I've seen from Njoku. I like Njoku as an older tight end. I like him more than Johnson, Goddard, Henry. I think those guys are probably on one-year contracts. So we'll hoping that he gets a job here as it is March. I anticipate he will get a tight end position somewhere. We'll see what that looks like. Dylan Sampson, Caleb Johnson, and Aaron Jones to close out the round. Still a lot of youthful rookie wide receivers left on the board here. I expect some of those guys to go here pretty quick, as Pat Bryant is the next selection. Kyle Williams coming off the board. Oh, I'm on the clock. Sorry. I'm going to take Mac Jones. I know that Geno Smith is a starter for now. I know that Kirk Cousins could end up getting a job and being a starter as well as Aaron Rodgers, but those guys are older. They're not players that I think have any future. And so even though Mac Jones isn't a starter, we've seen him when he's been in San Francisco. He's been good. I know Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch say that the price is incredibly high in order to trade him, but everyone has their price at some point. And I just feel like Mac Jones, given the fact that I do need a third quarterback, either by injury with Purdy, which wouldn't be uncommon for a 49er to that's my team to miss time, or it's possible they trade him. So not someone that I believe, in a bye week or in case of an injury, I would be able to play, but certainly somebody that gives me at least some stability as far as upside for what's left on the board at the quarterback position. Isaac Tesla, Zachariah Branch, Pat Fryermuth, Malachi Fields, Braylon Allen. I like that pick, Kendall, Braylon Allen. Had I not taken Jones there, that's who I would have taken. So I like that pick. Justin Fields, Alec Iomanner, and Chris Rodriguez Jr. to finish out the 16th. Jalen Naylor at the 17th. I think that's an interesting name. Also, I felt like Vegas paid him a lot. I don't expect him to be the wide receiver one there. I think we all expect Brock Bowers to be the tight end / wide receiver one for Raiders. And I expect that they will draft or trade for somebody. Jacoby Lane, I like that pick a lot. I think he's an interesting, second round, maybe third round, depending on how your rookie draft falls. So that's a nice pick there for Victorious. Keyshawn Butte, A.D. Mitchell, as we get a quick wide receiver run. Jerry Jeudy, as we get into the 17th round here. Lot of youthful wide receivers and Jerry Jeudy coming off the board. Hollywood Brown signing a 1-year contract with the Philadelphia Eagles, followed by Keaton Mitchell. That's a nice pick for the LA Chargers. Definitely Manuel Wilson coming off the board. So definitely some interesting names. I'm going to go with another rookie wide receiver here. I like Chris Bell from Louisville. He does kind of give me some Debo vibes. I know he came off an injury this past year, so his stock is probably a little bit lower. So I'm going to take the discount in the 17th on Chris Bell, even if he sits on my bench for a while, that he hopefully develops into a flex player for me at the wide receiver position. Starting to get to that point here, 17th round, where it is probably been call your shot time. As we see, my brain just went blank on his first name, but the young kid from Connecticut, the other Bell, not Chris Bell, someone in the chat, help me out there. But the other wide receiver out of UConn, followed by Jalen Noel and Christian Kirk on a 1-year contract to the 49ers here to close out the 17th round. Skyler Bell. Yep. So it took me a second. K. Dotton, Troy Franklin, that Denver wide receiver room with the addition of Jalen Waddle getting pretty crowded. Sean Tucker, I think, has some upside. I like that pick as well. Interesting player. These running backs just don't inspire me. I'm just not into any of these guys right here. I've got a ton of wide receivers. I think we're kind of in a flat tier right here where it's either upside, rookie, tight end. So I'm going to do something that not a lot of people are thinking about. I have Carson Beck as my QB2 in this class. I know that everyone is on Ty Simpson. I'm going to just make the quick case for Carson Beck over Ty Simpson. It is not that I think he's a better quarterback. I think they're probably about the same in terms of ceiling. But the NFL has recently been going away from, I hate to say it as I'm wearing my Gator hat, but the Anthony Richardsons of the world, right? The high upside, doesn't have a lot of experience, youthful, but maybe a project. Case in point, JJ McCarthy. We questioned whether he was good enough because he just didn't throw the ball out at Michigan, and they won the national championship. And everyone said, well, he's got he can make all the throws. He's got great strength. He's got a great arm, and he had a great combine. And the combine is the underwear Olympics. There's nobody in your face putting pressure on you. TJ Watt. TJ Watt's not running at you. Myles Garrett's not running at you, getting in your face. So I understand being able to throw the ball 70 yards in the Indianapolis Dome, and that's great. But ultimately, that's got to translate to production. So I do think Carson Beck is going to wind up as the QB2 in this class. I don't think he has a very high ceiling. He's not somebody that's going to be great. I don't think he becomes a starter. But I don't know that Ty Simpson, if he is a starter, remains a starter for very long, a.k.a. J.J. McCarthy. So I think Carson Beck could give you a little something at some point during his career. Stranger things have happened. It's a SuperFlex league. I think we all have that story, but I'll just share mine really quickly. I won a SuperFlex league 3 years ago with Russell Wilson and Jarrett Stidham as my starting quarterbacks, and they were on the same team. Russell Wilson went out. I had to put Jarrett Stidham in, and I think I had Jared Goff or somebody else as my other quarterback. Now the rest of my team was extremely high ceiling, Jamar Chase, and I don't remember my running backs off the top of my head. But my point being is that you just never know when you're going to need a guy. I needed Jarrett Stidham for 1 week. It happened to be in the championship, and I think that's what Carson Beck could eventually give you. So keep an eye on the draft. We're all curious to see who the QB2 is. I have him ahead of Simpson. It does not mean I'm right, but we'll see what the NFL thinks here in a couple weeks. Grant Helm coming off the board, followed by Duarte's, Juwan Johnson, Damon Claiborne, rookie running back, going off the board, followed by Will Howard. Will Howard's a nice pick, J-Win 71. I do think Will Howard, as of right now, has a chance to be the starter in Pittsburgh. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to do what Aaron Rodgers does. He's going to soak up the media attention. He's going to wait for people to, give him the spotlight, ultimately to come back and say, I think I could play football for one more season. And we'll see what that looks like. Nobody here that I'm super in love with. So I'm going to take a shot and a flyer here on Justin Jolie out of I believe NC State, if my memory is correct. I'll look it up really quickly, but an interesting prospect that I think a lot of people are sleeping on at the tight end position. I know people like Max Clare. I know people like Michael Trigg. Jolie is out of NC State, so I was correct there. I also like Trigg. I think he's a good player. I think he's a big body. Jolie also a big body, good. So I'm just going to take a flyer here. It's early. It's March. We got a lot of time before even the rookie drafts, let alone when we're doing startup drafts. David Njoku doesn't have a job, and Eli Stower is another rookie. So I'm going to give myself an option to have hopefully one of these rookies develop. We know it takes time. And in the 19th round, totally satisfied with that. Isaiah Bond, Dallas Goedert, Tez Johnson to close out the 19th. And as we finish the 20th round here, Jordan James off the board here for the start of the round, followed by Keon Coleman. And we'll see what this looks like. Oh, I guess I got autoed. My time froze out. All right, life will go on. Antonio Williams was my auto pick. Apologies, my computer must have froze there. Followed by Hunter Henry. And as we get ready to close out the draft here, I am going to pull up the big board and go ahead and share this. I realize now that I have been sharing this the entire time. Well, that was foolish. This is why we need Kendall here. You gotta call me on these things. So for those that have been watching the draft, listening, apologies that I didn't have the board up. Someone in the chat should have told me that. Jack Betch, Trey Tucker, I don't know who this is. Brennan Thompson, Kamani Vidal. Alvin Kamara does get drafted here in the 20th round. We'll see what his role looks like here this season. Calvin Ridley, apparently the Titans want him back and want him back pretty badly, as I'm starting to understand, and Jalen Tolbert. That will conclude the draft. All right, let's wrap the show here and take a look at some teams. For those that are just for those that are going ahead and following along here, apologies that I didn't have the board up. And it is a SuperFlex 12-team full PPR draft. So let's start at the 101 here. Pastor Sauce as Josh Allen, Bryce Young, and Malik Willis. I love that quarterback room. Josh Allen, clearly your QB1. I'm not a huge believer in Bryce Young. We've seen some improvement. We've certainly seen some improvement, but I just don't see a QB1 finish for him in his range. But Josh Allen, because he obviously can and has been the QB1 so many times, I think that makes up for whatever you're missing as a ceiling with Bryce Young. And Malik Willis, we just don't know yet. He's got very limited 6 starts, of course. They just shipped Waddle out of town. I know they say Achane's not available, but everyone has their price, and I wouldn't rule it out that he leaves as well as Miami starts to get younger and start over and get money off the books. I can see Achane staying because he's on a rookie contract, so we'll see what it looks like, but Malik Willis is going to need some help in terms of weapons. Pastor Sauce at the running back room, James Cook and Kinshawn Judkins, so you got to feel really good about those two. With Bashal Tootin, Tyrone Tracy, Rashad White, Chris Rodriguez, and Jaden Blue mixed in. His wide receiver core, George Pickens, Devonta Smith. So you've got upside in both of those guys. Ricky Pearsall, we'll see what it looks like. The signing of Christian Kirk kind of makes me feel like Ricky's maybe not the wide receiver 2 the Niners were hoping he was going to be. But Josh Downs, Jalen Coker, Jalen Naylor, and Jalen Tolbert. And then at the tight end position, Bretton Strange, AJ Barner, and Jake Tonjes. I like Pastor Sauce's team. If I'm not going to give it a grade right now off the top of my head, but if I'm looking at it, it's a little top heavy, which is kind of what you expect from a lot of these teams. And a lot of these teams that we're going to go through are probably going to be a little top heavy. But I do like the upside, of course, of his first 6-7 picks here with Allen, Pickens, Cook, Judkins, Smith. You feel really good about those guys being able to not only compete. I don't think this is a team that's going to go into an early rebuild. I don't know if there's enough ceiling in year 1 to win a championship here because there's not a ton of depth. Of course, we haven't made trades, but I think it's a middle of the pack team, and I like it. Victorious, I know Victorious had said normally in a real draft he probably wouldn't go double Falcon, and that is totally understandable. But his quarterback room, Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray. Similar to Pastor Sauce, high ceiling with Jalen Hurts. Maybe not overall QB1, but certainly top 5, and absolutely a QB1. Baker Mayfield slotting in that QB2 with Kyler Murray is a very viable QB3. So I like the quarterback room for the next 2 to 3 years. We'll see what happens with Kyler in year 2 if he's in Minnesota or elsewhere. Of course, Bijan can and will have the ability every single season to be the overall RB1, coupled with Chase Brown. Chase Brown's safe for now. We'll see what Cincinnati does in the draft. Jonah Coleman, Mike Washington Jr., Katron Allen, Adam Randall out of Clemson. So very, very top heavy with Bijan and Chase Brown. My concern with this running back room, it's just a mock, but my concern if this was a real draft is, again, we don't know landing spot and we just don't know the talent of this running back class. So we'll see what that ends up looking like. Drake London, Rashee Rice, Casey Concepcion, Travis Hunter, Juwan Jennings, Alec Iomanner, and I forgot Calvin Ridley at the bottom there, Jacoby Lane. So I like this wide receiver room. Rashee Rice is always in the offseason a question mark as to what he's going to be, but the talent's there. I have Casey Concepcion as my wide receiver 4 in this rookie class, so I think he ends up potentially being, if he develops the way we think he will, the wide receiver 2 here for Victorious behind Drake London. And then there's some question marks for me with Jennings, Io Manor, and Hunter. Kincaid, Kittle, and Kelsey at the tight end position. So it's probably a team that's built more to win now than for the future. But it's obviously got some assets that if Victorious decided, it's just not looking like I'm a playoff team and maybe I just don't have the depth, that there are some big assets that you could sell to go into a mini or full rebuild if that was the decision that he makes. Lord of Fanta, Caleb Williams, Patrick Mahomes, Shedeur Sanders, Justin Fields. I like the Justin Fields selection, not because I like Justin Fields, but because it gives you a guaranteed starter for however long Mahomes takes to be ready. I think Mahomes will be out there week 1. I don't think he'll be ready to play week 1, but I think for tickets and for fans and all the bullshit that comes with that, it's possible that he is out there. But if not, you've got a starter to pair with Caleb Williams. So I like the quarterback room a lot, especially when Mahomes is healthy and ready to go. Lord of Fanta built his team around Jahmyr Gibbs, as I would have done too. So I love that pick, of course. But Jordan Mason, Kenny Gainwell, Trey Benson, and Alvin Kamara, I don't think there's any value left in Kamara. Trey Benson, I don't think there's a lot left. Kenny Gainwell, I like. Jordan Mason is interesting. So I think it's probably a combination of Jordan Mason and Gainwell as the RB2 on this team. But Jamison Williams, Jalen Waddle, Michael Wilson, Alec Pierce, Xavier Worthy, and Devontae Adams. Lord of Fanta could easily trade one of those guys in season to grab himself a running back or even a pick. Because there's enough youth and obviously contracts with Waddle, Pierce, and Williams all having been paid. I like what Michael Wilson did last year. He's a really interesting player and prospect in the 7th round. Lord of Fanta decided to go with Colston Loveland in the 4th to pair with Caleb Williams as the tight end 3. Love it. TJ Hawkinson, whatever. Terrace Ferguson, whatever. At this point, it's just give yourself an opportunity to let Loveland be the guy. So I like this team a lot, actually. I think this is a team that's built to compete. I think it's a team that's built to have a 2 to 3 year shelf life with some of the youth. Good draft for Lord of Fanta out of the 103. Kendall, I'm going to do your team quick because you're one of the co-hosts of the show. I'm just going to do it fast. Drake May, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, and Jacoby Brissett. I know Kendall very well. One of those quarterbacks is getting traded. Jacoby Brissett probably winds up on my team, let's be honest, and Kendall probably gets a 3rd round pick back for it. Omarion Hampton, Breece Hall, RJ Harvey, and Braylon Allen with Kamani Vidal. Two hero RBs up top with Breece and Hampton, both young, both still on, well, I guess the transition tag for Breece or the franchise tag, whatever the hell he's on, and a Hampton on a rookie deal. So great there. RJ Harvey, I don't know. We'll see. J.K. Dobbins being re-signed. But Braylon Allen being the handcuff for this season, at least for Breece, is nice. And then Kamani Vidal mixes in. So some guys that he could throw in there, but of course, very top heavy. Roma Dunze, Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed, Jalen McMillan, Trey Harris, Jeremy Bernard, A.D. Mitchell for the wide receiver core. Kendall is a Bears fan. He's a Rome guy. So obviously going to have Rome as the centerpiece of that team. The 1A to Luther Burden's 1B. But I know Kendall well. He is going to sell at some point, and he's going to wind up with a bunch of picks. His roster will not look anything like this draft. So I'm not going to grade it because it wouldn't be what he would keep. But Harold Fannin, Aronde Gadsden, and Grant Helm at the tight end position. Duarte, drafted at the 105, builds his team around Jamar Chase. His quarterback room is CJ Stroud, Matt Stafford, and Michael Penix. So, not a ton of upside in that quarterback room. But what I really like about this team is what he did with his skill position players. So at the running back position, we've got JT and Travis Etienne. You've got 2 guys that are going to be stalwart workhorses. Not a ton of competition in that backfield as of now for either one of those guys. Derrick Henry's got one last run in him. And ultimately, I think at some point, it's going to be it. I think this is it. But Blake Corum is a nice player. I like what he does. Tony Pollard, I'm not super high on, but as your RB6, that's totally RB5, totally fine. I like this running back room a lot with JT, Etienne, and Henry this first year, with Blake Corum adding touchdown upside. So that's a nice, strong running back room. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins on the same team, not always my favorite. I think obviously caps your upside, but one of those guys, more likely than not, Higgins could get traded if there's some strengthening of the team elsewhere. BTJ is interesting. I just don't know what to do with him. So in the 5th round, I think it's a fine pick. I personally probably would have gone Luther Burden there a couple picks later, but that's totally fine. BTJ could have a great resurgence. I hope he does. I've got him on a team. I would love for him to have a resurgence. Debo Samuel, Rashid Shaheed, Malachi Fields. I like. He's an interesting prospect out of Notre Dame. Jerry Jeudy, Chris Brazzell, the second from Tennessee. And then I'm not sure who this is. Brennan Thompson, I'll be honest, that's a rookie that I don't know. So I need to get deeper into the late rookie picks. Jake Ferguson and Juwan Johnson with Trey McBride. So you've got an outlier in Chase, McBride, and JT who can all finish as the overall 1 at their position. I think this team is going to hurt you in year 1. I think this is as of I'm looking at it right now, I think there's a lot of ceiling here. This could be a playoff team in year 1. Robbie taking a similar approach to Duarte and not going quarterback until the 7th round. He starts with Jared Goff and Daniel Jones as his quarterbacks with Geno Smith. So I like that. It's not sexy, but you at least get Smith a couple starts until Jones is healthy and until Smith probably loses his job. But Jared Goff should be there and should have another season like he did the last couple of years where he's still a top 10 guy, top 12 guy. In the running back room, it's Devon Achane, Kenneth Walker, Saquon Barkley, Ramondre Stevenson, and Damon Claiborne. Claiborne, of course, a rookie, I believe, if my memory's right, out of Wake Forest. But I like the rest of the running back room. We don't know what he is yet, but I like the rest of the running back room, particularly with Achane, Walker, and Barkley. A lot of upside there. Puka Nacua, Tet McMillan, A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, Khalil Shakir, Cortland Sutton, and Hollywood Brown with Trey Tucker. And then Kyle Pitts, who just had a tight end 2 season, Chig Okonkwo, and Pat Freiermuth. The question marks for me with this team is just the quarterback position, but the rest of it is extreme ceiling. I think this is a playoff team. There's a lot of ceiling with those wide receivers, with Achane, with Walker, with Barkley. If Pitts can deliver another top 2, top 3 season for you, nice draft, Robbie. I like this team as well. Jay Wynn starts with my boy. I love him. Joe Burrow and Tyler Shuck. Tyler Shuck is obviously the quarterback from New Orleans Saints, and Will Howard. Will Howard's an interesting player right now because we just don't know what's going to happen with Rodgers. We expect that he'll come back for one final run, but if he doesn't, it's interesting if Will Howard becomes a starter. So I liked that pick late on. In the running back room, Bucky Irving, we've got some questions about that with the signing of Kenneth Gainwell, but he's still going to be fine. Do not panic on Bucky. He's probably still going to be an RB2, high RB2 at worst, with RB1 upside again. Kyron Williams, of course, coming off of another great season with the Rams. Kyle Monangai mixing in with the Bears for DeAndre Swift. Bill Krosky-Merritt. If you have Bill Krosky-Merritt, Rashad White, you will be hoping that Jeremiah Love is off the board, because if he doesn't go to the Titans, I do think he goes to Washington. So we'll see what that looks like at the end of April. Isaiah Pacheco and Keaton Mitchell. So I like this running back room. It's not the strongest compared to some of the other rooms we've seen so far, but there's upside and there's touchdowns in here. And ultimately, that's what you're looking for. Justin Jefferson with Kyler Murray hopefully gets back to being a top 5 wide receiver. Nico Collins, Marvin Harrison, we'll see what that looks like. He's shown some flashes, but we just haven't seen it yet. Jacoby Myers, Quentin Johnston, Romeo Doubs, Zachariah Branch, rookie wide receiver, Tank Dell, and Jack Besh with Tucker Kraft and Dalton Schultz. I like the team. I like some of the pieces here have extreme ceiling. I think there's some question marks in this team is what the longevity for some of these guys looks like. Bucky's stock is trending down right now. It could bounce back. It could fall off of a cliff. So we'll see what that looks like. There's upside here. I don't know if it's quite a playoff team compared to some of the other teams I've seen, but there's enough ceiling that you could sneak in there. So I like the draft. I think Jay Wynn probably makes a couple of moves to strengthen in certain areas, but he's definitely got some pieces to build around, and it was a solid draft for him in the middle of at the 7 spot. Graham Stroker starts QB heavy with Jaden Daniels and Lamar Jackson. Love both those, and then he adds Jalen Milroe, high upside rookie. If Sam Darnold does miss time, you've got a young athletic quarterback there. So Daniels and Jackson, of course, give you extreme ceiling. Javonte Williams, Zach Charbonnet, Chuba Hubbard, Jonathan Brooks, Emmanuel Wilson, Ollie Gordon. It's not the sexiest running back room, but Javante's got a contract. He doesn't have a lot of competition in the backfield. He's going to score touchdowns. I don't know what's going to happen in Seattle. I think the expectation is that they sign somebody and probably draft a running back. So Sharp's, of course, going to miss the season, but long term, is he the Seattle running back one? I think we all want to know the answer to that, and we just don't. I like what Graham did here with Chuba and Brooks. I think that was very smart to control that Carolina backfield and give yourself a chance to have a weekly starter, no matter who it is. Emmanuel Wilson, Ollie Gordon, certainly just sort of depth pieces. At the wide receiver room, I believe this is true. I think a lot of people believe this is true, but this is the wide receiver one, Emeka Egbuka. I just don't see a world where Jalen McMillan is going to be the wide receiver one there, although I really like Jalen McMillan. I think it's Egbuka's wide receiver room now. Chris Godwin's there, but for how much longer, we'll find out. The talent of Garrett Wilson is awesome. The situation is awful. And Luther Burden I love. So I actually, and don't laugh at me, I would put this at Egbuka, Burden, Wilson 1, 2, 3 and the depth chart. If it were me, I understand Wilson's the better player, but he doesn't have a quarterback. So I would put him as my wide receiver 3. Wan'Dale Robinson, I think, is going to be very useful this season. Michael Pittman, he'll have some value. Chimere DK, Isaac Tesla, Torrey Horton, I like. With Kenyon Sadiq, Mark Andrews, and Hunter Henry, hopefully Sadiq develops into the talent we expect and want, but Andrews and Henry give you stability. A lot of ceiling here. The running back room has question marks, but the ceiling here is really high for Graham with the quarterbacks and then those wide receivers. The running back room probably means it's not a playoff team right away, but again, some young pieces to build around and a really good draft. When you start QB in a super flex, it does mean you're sacrificing something. I like the wide receiver room, and then obviously the decision I think Graham made was to sacrifice the running back room. I'm not going to rate my own team. It's not what you guys are here for. Brock Purdy, Trevor Lawrence, and JJ McCarthy here for Grumsh. I like it. I think it's solid. Gives you a lot of QB2s with QB2 floors, with QB1 upside. JJ McCarthy, massive question mark. He'll be a big talking point for the whole season. He'll be a big talking point all season as long as Kyler's healthy. At the running back position, Jeremiah Love coming off the board here as the RB4. I have no problem with that. I think that's a great pick there. Josh Jacobs, Jadarian Price, Emmett Johnson, Dylan Sampson, Sean Tucker. So a lot of youth here except for Jacobs, but Jacobs is going to give you a lot of touchdowns as the only show in town for Green Bay, and a nice pairing with Jeremiah Love. At the Amon-Ra position, at the wide receiver position, it is Amon-Ra St. Brown, Zay Flowers, Christian Watson, Denzel Boston, Elijah Surratt, Kyle Williams, Skylar Bell, apologies to Mama Bell that I didn't remember your son's name, and Isaiah Bond. A lot of rookies, hopefully rookies that develop. Christian Watson can be the Green Bay wide receiver one, but the best ability is availability, and he ain't always available. Sam Laporta, Isaiah Likely, and Max Clare. Really nice tight end room for Grumsh here. I think this is a solid group. I think the rookies need to develop for this to be a playoff team. It's most likely middle of the pack, given the ceiling is a little lower for some of these guys. I love Jeremiah Love. I love Amon-Ra, and I like Josh Jacobs. Zay Flowers had an overall, I think, wide receiver 6 finish. But after that, it's a pretty steep drop-off. So still some good pieces to work with here for Grumsh. Certainly not a bad draft, but if this is a real league and this is the real draft, probably not a team that jumps into the playoffs in year 1. I blame Perk, Bo Nix, Cam Ward, Ty Simpson. I think Cam Ward takes a step forward this year. I think adding Wan'Dale is helpful. I really do think Jeremiah Love goes to Tennessee. I could see them taking one of Tate Lemon or Tyson. I certainly think that they have to take one of the big 3 receivers or Jeremiah Love because they've got to get Cam Ward somebody. But I think the signing of Wan'Dale probably means they take Love, get him on a rookie contract. They've got Cam Ward on a rookie contract. They've paid a wide receiver, and they just can't rebuild everything in year 1. So I think get your rookie quarter contracts for your quarterback and your running back, and then go solve the wide receiver position in the draft later on, because you've also got Alec Manor and Chimere DK on rookie contracts. I know those aren't long-term solutions, but at least it's some guys that can get you through this year and can hopefully make some catches and get Cam Ward to develop. At the end of the day, that's ultimately what this is all about. So I think Cam Ward takes a step forward, and as your QB2 with Bo Nix, I think it's solid. At the running back position, Ashton Genty, Travion Henderson, DeAndre Swift, Caleb Johnson, Tajay Spears. Spears will be interesting on this roster if Love winds up in Tennessee. If Love doesn't, I'm not entirely positive that it's not Spears and Pollard again next season. So it could have some value. Caleb Johnson is unfortunately in a purgatory until further notice, and DeAndre Swift, Travion Henderson, and Ashton Genty headline this. So good running back room, huge ceiling with Genty. I like what the Raiders did on offense. A lot of options for Genty to take a step forward because of that improved offensive line. Malik Neighbors, Chris Olave, Jordan Addison, Jalen Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, Chris Godwin, Jalen Noel, Troy Franklin, and Keon Coleman. Nice wide receiver room. Obviously, I'm always a sucker for good wide receiver rooms. I think this is one of the top wide receiver rooms that I've seen so far, although I did like Lord of Fanta's wide receiver room as well. But this is nice, right? Neighbors, of course, coming off the injury. Chris Olave having his best and healthiest season with Tyler Shuck. So hopefully those two can continue their pairing and have a nice rapport going into year 2 for Shuck. Not obviously, I think it's year 5 or 6 now for Olave. Jordan Addison, I think, should take a step, I won't say forward, but a step back to being relevant again with Kyler Murray. And I think Jaden Higgins becomes the wide receiver 2 in Houston. So nice job. I blame Perk on your wide receiver room. Tyler Warren, Mason Taylor, and Dallas Goedert. Nice tight end room. Tyler Warren, of course, the hero tight end. I think Michael Pittman leaving really benefits Warren and really benefits JT. Kendall, if you're still listening, watching, you're going to hate me, but I know you're a huge Alex Pierce guy. I think Alex Pierce is going to be fine. I don't know that he's going to be a top 15 guy, a top 24 guy, I think is possible, but I just don't know that he's going to jump into that top 15. So I think Tyler Warren and JT were the big winners in the Michael Pittman trade. I blame Perk. It's a nice team. I think the lack of depth at running back after Genty, Henderson, and Swift probably over the life of a season, if one of those guys isn't fully healthy, probably costs this team a playoff spot in year 1. But if those guys stay healthy, this team could sneak into the playoffs. There's a lot of ceiling here. And I think there's a lot of touchdowns in this team. So this is the beauty of Dynasty. You just can't draft every player right away. So you just get a lot of pieces you feel comfortable that you're either going to build around or that have enough value that you can trade away. And that's one of my big tips and takeaways is whenever you draft, decide what you're doing, not early, but decide what you want to do, after the draft. Let it settle, let it marinate, take a look. Jar Jar, I'm still going to get to your team. Let it marinate for a little bit, but my strategy generally is I usually do, Kendall and I do a lot of auction drafts. I very rarely do Snake Dynasty startups anymore. I'm generally looking for the highest value players that I can afford, even if it means that my team isn't a full team. If I've just got, because I know ultimately what I'm going to want to do is build around some of those guys, but I also know that I can sell those for the most first round picks to rebuild my team. I'm talking about players that you could get 2 first round picks for. And I'll finish the show with an example here in just a second. Let's finish the 112. Jar Jar 51. He decided to start his team with Dak Prescott, Fernando Mendoza, and Tua Tagovailoa. So a good quarterback room. I think Dak's got a couple years of good football left. I know that Dak's not always everyone's favorite player, but I like Dak. I think he's solid. I think he's going to give you a top 10 season if he's healthy, pretty much guaranteed every year until he can't anymore, especially with those weapons. So I think that's a great QB1 with Mendoza as a high upside QB2, maybe not in year 1, possibly, but in year 2 and beyond, I think he's a QB2. CeeDee Lamb to pair with Dak Prescott, Carnell Tate, DJ Moore, Parker Washington, Mike Evans, Pat Bryant, Christian Kirk, and Tez Johnson. We just don't know what Carnell Tate is yet. We don't know his landing spot, but we anticipate that he should be probably the first wide receiver, if not the second wide receiver going. I think it's going to go Tate, Lemon, Tyson personally, but we'll see how it goes next month. But a great wide receiver 2 to go with CeeDee Lamb here. Christian McCaffrey, Tyler Algier, Jalen Warren, J.K. Dobbins, James Conner, Aaron Jones, and Jordan James, with Cade Otton and Brock Bowers as your tight ends. So lot of ceiling in terms of the top heaviness of this team with McCaffrey, Lamb, Bowers. It's got some age in it, so I don't know that the depth is really there. Is this a playoff team in year one? Probably not, but still a good draft, still ability to win games, probably a middle of the pack team. I would just say this. I probably am trading McCaffrey this season if I have him and if he starts well. I think at some point the wheels are going to fall off with the age cliff. He's not Derrick Henry. He is, he's had his injury history. So I think if you can trade McCaffrey this season, it's always better to trade a player a year before it really goes south. I don't know that it's going to go completely south for McCaffrey next year. He may have 2 good years left. He may have 3 good years left. But I think if you have some question about his durability and you're concerned about some of the risk, I think his value is probably still pretty high this season, and we'll see what it takes to look like over the next 2 years. I told you I would wrap the show with kind of an example. I had a startup league last year, auction, SuperFlex, and the quarterbacks were just priced way too high. And I ended up getting Justin Herbert, and really that was it. So I spent my money elsewhere. I spent my money on Amon-Ra St. Brown, Ladd McConkey, Devonta Smith, and Jalen Waddle, and then a couple of young receivers. And let me just pull the team real quick so I can give you a sense. But I remember it off the top of my head. I sold Amon-Ra St. Brown for 2 firsts and a second. I sold Ladd McConkey for 2 first-round picks as well. I knew without a second quarterback and really no depth at the quarterback position that I was just going to be struggling. I had Bucky Irving, which at the time was a great draft selection. Now it's still fine. It's still fine. But as I go into this year's draft, 1, 2, 3, 4, I have 4 first-round picks this year and 3 next year. So there's a lot that needs to be done to improve this roster. But again, if I hadn't drafted such high value players, I wouldn't have had the ability to sell them for such great return. And so I think that's what you decide. Are you going to really compete in year one and go for it? Or are you maybe, I need to take a soft reset. I am always a fan of either going for it or rebuilding. I never, ever, and I know you guys don't either, I never want to finish in the middle of the pack. That is the worst place to be in. It's the worst draft picks. It's hard to, you can trade up, but it's just not fun for me. I think when I play Dynasty, I'm looking to do one of 3 things. I'm either looking to rebuild, I'm looking to win, with my team and really go for a championship, or I'm looking for an orphan team that needs some help that I can, low key. Rebuilding can be more fun than winning a championship. Obviously we want to win championships. We want to win money. We want to win rings. But it can be a lot of fun to rebuild. And I would much rather rebuild a team than finish 6th in the 12-team league. That's just the ultimate kick in the nuts. So thanks for being here for our draft tonight. Hopefully you all enjoy the podcast. I apologize. I didn't have the board up the whole time. That is on me. It's been a long week, long day. And Kendall, hope your computer is all right. For all of us here at the Get Right Fantasy Network, we appreciate the support. Make sure you are liked and subscribed. We do these every Friday night. We will be hosting mock draft tournaments all summer. We will announce that on socials. We will announce that everywhere we possibly can to get you into those mock draft tournament. It is free, and we do have a cash prize. Once we get down to the top 12, we have a real league and a proper draft and a cash prize for the winner. If you're a Dynasty player and you want to check out my podcast, jump in with us Tuesday night, 7:15, The Extra Point. Jump on socials, DM me at P Ruskin. I have leagues that I'm forming. I usually form about 1 league every year, every other year. If you want to come and play with us, we would love to have you. I've got a couple spots left in a Dynasty Best Ball startup draft that will be kicking off here sooner than later. I think there's 7 or 8 guys in there right now, so we're still looking for 3 or 4 more. Hit us up on socials with all your questions. You can certainly jump in our Discord channel. We will be there answering all of your trade questions, your sit-start questions as we get into the season. Ultimately, our channel is about helping you guys win championships and having the most fun that you possibly can playing fantasy football. For all of us here at the Get Right Fantasy Network, appreciate y'all tuning in. Have a great night. We out.